All right, well, this one's for you, Scorpio, okay? This is Tarot Lumination with your love and relationship report for October 2017, and that's for you, Scorpio. This is for significant relationships. This is not a singles report. We're going to try and do a separate playlist for that, okay, Scorpios? And this is on the understanding that there's you and a significant other, and it's a chosen relationship to some degree. And we're also allowing that there's you, the other, and the relationship itself. There's a third entity called the relationship, which has a structure, an identity, a life, a meaning, a purpose, a feeling of its own. Okay? And in a healthy relationship, of course, both parties would conduct themselves through the relationship as opposed to face to face. So we'll see what plays out here. We're going to see what the story tells, and we're going to make the best of it. We're just going to read for the energy, okay? Cards were already well shuffled in advance. No jumpers, no flyers, no oracles, no reversals, nothing like that. It's just going to be very simple stuff, okay? And we're going to make the best of it, all right, Scorpio? So hang in. Let's see what happens. Cards are now shuffled. Let's do a cut and do a real split over this way. Okay. All right, this would be you, Scorpio, and your energy. We're looking through October, of course, here, a little bit coming in and a little bit leading out. This would be the other, a significant other, a chosen other. And this is going deep into you, Scorpio. This is going deep into the other. And this would be the relationship itself, okay? So can you see here the crucible shape? The crucible is a structure which can withstand and endure the intense pressures that occur inside a relationship. Even a very healthy relationship, we always intimate, we separate. We intimate and separate. It's just like the ocean, okay? And this would be the momentum. Let's say more like, where's it all going, okay? And this, we're going to look at this in a moment. This is what I think of as the weather. It's the bottom card here, and that permeates the situation. And you're not going to be owned by the weather. Most people like to make the best of the weather. Hopefully you're going to do the same, Scorpio. So if it's really sucky weather, you figure out how to deal with it. If it's really awesome weather, you don't feel obliged to feel awesome just because it is awesome. In other words, no fake relationships here, no facades going on. All right, we're dealing with the real thing. All right, Scorpio. So Scorpio, it looks like it's about stability here. Seeking what works, holding on to what works, creating a solid foundation for the future on the understanding that it is work. And in order to endure the long term, it does involve, let's just say, establishing roots, establishing foundations, understanding the true value, the true wealth of what's going on here, and let's say locking it down. Now, some people see this as a card of grasping. I don't particularly feel that here for you, Scorpio, right now. I think this card is much more to do with very serious practicalities of creating, like you have an opportunity here in October to look at the relationship from a very grounded perspective, not too happy, not too sad, but more about like the practical aspects of the relationship, where you can look into what works and what doesn't work, and it's like preparing the ground, so to speak, so that the relationship can flourish later on. Because without a really good solid foundation, without a very well understood power structure, power dynamics, things can get very challenging if you hit a rough patch. Whereas when you have a really strong foundation, it makes the crucible itself very strong, so that when you do have those periods of, let's say, extreme up and downs, or everything is over here, or it's all like this, you will find a way to endure, okay? Remember, this is your reading for you, Scorpio. It's not a couple's reading. This is just a generic, broad energy reading for you for love and relationship for October. It's not a couples reading where there's you over there and there's the other over there on the other side of the desk. It's all about you, Scorpio. There's the other and there's your relationship that you share with another. Let's have a look at you. Okay, so for you, Scorpio, this is an amazing opportunity for like brand new beginnings when it comes to like I would almost say spiritual awakening here. I don't know why I'm feeling it so strongly in that respect. Something to do with like a massive like awakening to the truth of what love is, so to speak, in the context of a functional, viable, working relationship. It's it's almost like an oh my gosh moment. This is for real. This is an energy of sacred opportunity. And it feels over here from Tarot Lumination, for you, Scorpio, it's all about being fully aware of the amazing potential here uh, of, let's say, spiritual expansion, not only for yourself, but for another and for the whole relationship itself. The relationship itself may be a very spiritually uplifting and awakening experience and opportunity for you, especially for the long term. If we're considering foundations here, if we're talking about long-term planning and building foundations for for things to endure uh, over the long term. So that's kind of exciting. This doesn't come around all the time. It would indicate that you must have done a lot of homework on yourself, Scorpio, to get to the point where you are deemed worthy, ready, willing, and able to receive this kind of opportunity, because it's kind of a big deal. Okay. And it allows you, like, in other words, it's almost like you're coming to a realization by doing the homework, doing the investment, investing in yourself, investing in the other, investing in the relationship, taking care and nurturing the relationship. This brings you to like your highest calling, so to speak, as an individual. And so, of course, that can be very satisfying. That can be very fulfilling to the self, the person. Okay, and so that's like a gift, like a golden gift, like a tangible, real life, tangible asset that is inherent and built into the foundations of the relationship here. And luckily, you are seeing this. I feel that Scorpio, you're very, very aware of this. It's very, very stark. It's very, very clear. And it's a chance to, let's say, rise up to that new stature. It's kind of a big deal. And it looks like you're ready, willing, and able to accept. Let's have a look at the other. Wow. Well, they're holding on because it feels to me that they're dealing with the struggles of their own that are, let's say, bringing out the best in them to some degree, and also taking them to the limits of their endurance. But there's no question that they will endure. It's just that they might feel as though the way their life is right now, in the context of this relationship, it's taking them right up to the wall, so to speak. And it's in some ways very exciting for them. In some ways, it's very challenging. And it, let's say, brings out the best in them because there's no question that they're dealing with whatever it is inside of them that has to be dealt with, because there's obviously a lot of, let's say, external situations and circumstances that are not necessarily hostile, but let's say very challenging in a way where they would feel they, in some ways, it's not having to defend themselves, but to assert their authority to themselves. In other words, to reassure themselves that they are exactly in the right place at the right time with the right person in the right relationship for the right reasons. And it needs to be, they need to fight for this because they know it and they feel it, and they are not going to be defeated. There's a tremendous amount of courage here, bravery, and enduring bravery, where they know they will do whatever has to be done in order to prevail, in order to like surmount whatever obstacles and challenges that could thwart themselves as they see themselves in the context of a relationship, especially this relationship as a chosen relationship. Let's say they are enduring and they're doing a really, really, really good job. And obviously, this is very different energy here. So it needs to be understood between both parties that there's two very distinctly different individuals here who are going through their own very unique, very individual experience in the context of the relationship. And my feeling is that in their own way, this is the expression of their energy as they're doing whatever they can to invest in the stabilization of relationship and making things work in a way that will endure the long run, just as you are doing your version of the same thing. But your approach is much more to do with recognizing the opportunity, the amazing situation here, tapping into it, tuning into it, and going with it to the point where you can act, let's say, not just by feeling really inspired yourself, but act as an inspiration for the other so that they can feel supported and encouraged and empowered to endure the long term, so that their acts of courage and bravery and exertion of passion make sense and it's all worthwhile. It's not just futile conflict. It's actually very satisfying, very worthy type of energy here, okay? And it feels to me like the reading's going really quickly. I don't know. I don't really turn on a clock or anything for doing this, but I'm feeling it. So, because this is very strong, vibrant energy here. But again, the other party, Scorpio, might be right at the brink of their abilities. It's not they're going to fall over on the off the edge or anything, but they're really, really doing everything they can in their power to do what has to be done so that things work out, because it looks like they're very passionately committed to this. It's just that their experience, not the experience, but the way they experience the relationship is quite different from you at this moment going through October. So let's have a look at deep inside of you. Wow. Okay, well, with the Knight of Swords here, a little bit of word of caution, Scorpio. It sounds like you're really ready and eager to go for it, and you have, like, you see a tremendous potential here, a tremendous opportunity, and you really want it all, and you really, really want it right now. This is the Knight of Swords here, and the thing about this energy, it feels like you have to be careful. There's no wands over here, but it means it feels like you have to be very, very careful right now, Scorpio, because you might be very, very charged up about wanting to make things happen, having been all fired up and inspired and cued into place by this energy of divine opportunity, which is arriving in your life right now. That could really trigger the desire to really bust out and go for it. And almost, let's just say, call it out. Let's say call out your truth in a way that works for you. But all I'm suggesting is here, be very, very careful, because they have to live through their own journey themselves, and you can't impose your journey on top of them for your convenience and your understanding. It's very, very much, the energy here feels very much about you honoring your integrity, staying absolutely true to who you are, and doing that in a very, very brave, courageous, fearless way, in a very similar manner in which they're being very brave and courageous here, but also being extremely conscientious, so that in your, let's say, raw animal desires and wishes for everything to be so awesome in this new, let's say, spiritual upgrade that can happen in the context of a chosen relationship, that you don't trip over yourself and you don't trip over the other to the point where you actually can cause injury, even if it's unintended, totally innocent, because there's just so much, like, let's say, enthusiasm here with the Knight of Swords, that it could put unnecessary pressure on a significant other when they're already dealing with enough pressure on their own just to maintain their stability and their uh, condition, their status in the context of this relationship. Okay, so there's a lot of, let's say, firepower here. There's a lot of energy, and it could be, left to its own devices, it could be quite volatile and perhaps destabilizing, almost putting too much pressure on a significant other in a way that's not healthy for the relationship. Even though you might all be totally gung-ho, ready to go for it now, you've got to think long term. It really is a strong indication here of thinking long term, being very kind and very, very gentle, holding on to what works, being very, very conscientious of what's actually happening in the relationship, not what you think is happening, not what you want to happen, not what you're planning, not what you're seeing as the opportunity. Of course, be aware of that, but like taking it down to the roots, so to speak, it's very important to go with the events, the circumstances, the day-to-day evidence and the reality of the situation, and not get too carried away with the thrill of having something potentially wonderful that could endure for the long term. Okay, so we're asking for a little bit of graciousness here, okay, from you, Scorpio, while the significant other goes through everything that they have to endure. Okay, it's just common courtesy, it's kindness, it's very loving energy. It's just that there's a lot of, let's say, enthusiasm and inspiration and divine awakening happening for you, Scorpio, in the context. And you're seeing it and you're feeling it, and that's exciting. But they're dealing with things in their own way from a very different perspective. There's, let's just say this part's good, but we're dealing with things in a very different perspective from each side of the relationship. All right, let's go and have a look deep inside the other. Okay, well, again, this is a struggle. To me, it feels like deep, deep down, there's two things going on simultaneously with a significant other here. It feels that in the context of this relationship, Scorpio, your relationship with a significant other, they are being taken to the limits of their abilities. In some ways, it's very, very exciting for them because they're really getting a feel of who they are and how they are when pressed or when, let's say, taken to the limit, to the point where it's actually very, very satisfying. It's extremely rewarding because you get to see what you're made of. And that can really be very fulfilling because you can see how you are enduring in the situation of any challenges or conflicts that make it perhaps hard to create stability in the context of a long-term relationship. So deep down, again, going back to, I see a double theme here where deep down, it's a huge turn on for them in a way that they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm really, really having a chance now to come into my own power, my own strength, my own self, my own divinity. And at the same time, getting a real sense of like their person, their personality, themselves, their identity. And also at the same time, they would be feeling how, like, what I'm trying to suggest here, there's a strong link between the Ace of Swords and the Strength here, where for the significant other in this relationship, Scorpio, it's that they are feeling how they are being called to a higher version of themselves, to take their own behavior, their own circumstances, their own experience in the relationship, their whole life, their whole way of being, almost turning it into a calling where they feel as though they're being called to act according to submit their whole, let's say, their whole self to the will of heaven. Okay, but in the context of the relationship, in other words, the relationship might feel to them as though it has a higher meaning and a higher purpose, just rather than just being about uh, you know you and me and you, we're doing this, we're doing that, you're doing this, oh wait a minute. So it isn't just It's more about the big picture, okay? Like, what is this really about? What is the purpose of who we are and what we are doing here? And it's obvious that you are already seeing it. You're very inspired and triggered here, and you're going to go for it, no question, Scorpio. And in their own way, they're going for it too, but it might be a challenge because it's the the pressure of the situation and their circumstances, their dynamics, might be putting them in a position where let's say their egoic self here, the raw animal egoic self, is being pushed almost into a corner where they're realizing there is a bigger mission and a purpose here about bringing the ego into the service of the will of heaven. So you become an instrument, so to speak, where your life isn't, where their life isn't all about just what is satisfying for them. It's on the understanding that the relationship is a bigger thing than themselves or you or each other. The relationship itself is a thing of great significance that deserves attention for the potential for long-term stability and strength, in which case, for that to happen, the other party would have to rise up and it's like surrender to the higher calling of the relationship, where the relationship itself becomes very, very valuable. And it's not all about the ego of, you know, what are they trying to get out of you, Scorpio? What are they trying to get out of the relationship? No, they're very aware that the relationship has significance and long-term value, but it does require that they have to do a lot of internal like upgrading where they can take their raw animal power, their egoic self that they've known forever, but surrender that to the higher calling of spirit, divinity, uh, compassion, kindness, love on a grander scale than ever before that they've ever had to endure. So in some ways, they're having a very significant experience themselves, and just in the way that you're having a very significant experience here in October. It's just that the each experience is very, very different in the details, but they're very, very congruent in terms of how it works for the relationship, because it seems that it's very much a vested situation here. And in terms of the practicalities, in other words, it looks like uh, there's a lot of balance and harmony here in terms of creating like a four-legged table that will endure for the long term. Now let's have a look at the relationship itself here. Oh, it could indicate, don't be scared by this, Scorpio. It could be an indication that the relationship itself can mean the ending of a tremendous amount of pain and suffering that has been endured for a very, very long time. Okay? So do not be shocked by the Ten of Swords here, all right? I'm trying to call out the name of each card, by the way, because somebody wrote in and said sometimes all they do is listen to the reports. They don't want to watch them. They just want to listen. So it really helps if the cards are identified. And sometimes I forget. I'm sorry about that, but I'm going to try and do it from here onwards. So with the Ten of Swords here at the core of the relationship itself, it could indicate like it's almost like a stark awareness with you, Scorpio, and inside of the other that there is a potential for the healing of a tremendous amount of pain and suffering that possibly both parties have endured for a very, very long time. And it's apparent that, let's say, down the road, as the foundations are built and the structures of the relationship are starting to take form deeper down the road, even if you're already in relationship and you're looking forward to a new opportunity, Scorpio, it's a way to see things in that there's a whole new potential life in the world ahead for you, Scorpio, perhaps far away in some way, but beautiful, clear new horizons where all all this pain and suffering that you have had to carry, all the pain and suffering that they have had to carry, can officially be healed. Okay? That's how I'm feeling it here, where this is over. It's going to be over for you. It's going to be over for them, and you have a fresh new start and a fresh new beginning to uh, something that can be potentially very stable and satisfying. So where would that take you? Okay, to fresh new beginnings over here with the Page of Pentacles, but it does involve a lot of starting from scratch. Do you see here with the Page of Pentacles as the momentum coming out of October for the relationship itself? It's an indication that both parties are doing everything they can to do what has to be done in order to stabilize things and get the maximum value out of the situation, out of the relationship. Both parties very equally balanced in that way, but very, very different. The realization that this could be really, really good news for you, Scorpio, and for the other. This is joint ownership. Remember, Scorpio, you are the sign of joint resources, total ultimate soul merger, the complete merger of uh, mind, body, heart, and soul. Body, mind, heart, and soul. And Scorpio, your energy is the energy of what happens inside a marriage once a relationship is formed, once you've gone beyond friends and then romance and dating and then marriage. The next step is living inside the marriage, the intimacy, the deep soul merger that happens over the long term inside a marriage type structure, where the true strength and the true value occurs, or not, according to the decisions that you make. But it looks like for the long term going forward, it indicates that both parties have a lot to learn from themselves and each other, and that they have a lot to learn that where they have to take it upon themselves to learn this. So it means kind of a sense of dedication and devotion and realization that this could be really fortuitous, because it feels to me like it's got the energy of having made the decision to lock this down and make it real, understanding the end of all major pain and the chance to heal and start something fresh and new, and that works in a very practical way, a way that's functional and effective for both parties. Okay, joint resources here. I feel this very much as joint resources in the very traditional old-fashioned Scorpionic way. Um, and again, with Scorpio energy, there's a lot of healing. Typically, Scorpios can be very powerful healers. And so we might be in the very early stages here of recognizing the patterns that we just described, where let's just say there's no doubt or no question about the love here between you, Scorpio, and another. It's just like you're right in the middle in the dynamics of the ebb and flow of figuring out and understanding the true value of the relationship, the stability and the foundations of the relationship, and how to build it out going forward on the understanding that it has to be done step by step, allowing for a lot of innocence, but also a lot of opportunity and a lot of passion. And it could be very empowering and very spiritually uplifting and tremendously healing. A healing relationship to the point where the healing can go above and beyond yourselves and each other. So I hope that makes sense for you, Scorpio. Watch for your sun, moon, and rising. Make the best of it. Reinterpret however you want. Squash it all together. Have a super October. All right? Bye-bye. Bye-bye for now.